I can't say I would be shocked if the SEC came out and said that ETH was a security, because that has been aligned with everything they've done to date in trying to regulate the entire industry besides Bitcoin. Just falsely claiming that they have the authority to say all of these things are securities. I think that alarm bells started to ring when Ethereum moved over to a proof of stake model, and that said to the SEC, okay, this looks more like a security and an investment contract with staking and validating than it did before when it was under a proof of work consensus mechanism.
This content is brought to you by Uphold, which is one of the top crypto platforms out there, which allows you to easily buy, sell, trade Bitcoin and the top altcoins in the market. Uphold lists 260 plus cryptocurrencies. They also allow you to trade precious metals such as gold, silver, palladium, and platinum. I've been a user of Uphold since 2018, so I can vouch for this platform. They have full transparency reports, and they don't commingle or lend out your funds. They also have a great product called Vault, which is an assisted self-custody product. Vault allows you to maintain custody of your funds, and the keys are split. So Uphold holds one and you hold two. And if there's any issues, if you lose one of your keys, Uphold will help restore these keys, and you can maintain access to your funds. It's 24/7 instant trading. It's trustless. So this is a great feature that can give you peace of mind, where you don't have to worry about if you lose your private keys and much more. So if you'd like to learn more about Uphold, please visit the link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Cody Carbone, who's the Chief Policy Officer at the Chamber of Digital Commerce. Cody, great to have you back on.
Tony, always great to be here.
Well, Cody, I saw Senator Lummis and Gillibrand introduce a stablecoin bill, and I'm like, I got to talk to you. I got to get the insights here. But let's set the table a bit, because there was a hearing, a Senate banking hearing with Elizabeth Warren and the folks in the Treasury. Tell us about that, and then we'll talk about the stablecoin bill.
Yeah, so on April 9th, a few weeks ago now, we had a hearing in Senate Banking Committee on the illicit finance risks as it relates to digital assets. Testifying at this hearing was the Deputy Treasury Secretary, Wally Adeyemo, who has been very vocal on his concerns as it relates to digital assets. Most notably, he issued a letter to Senate Banking Committee in November, so going back a few months now, asking for more authority from Congress to regulate this space. This letter was never meant to be seen publicly. I know a lot of folks got a hold on it. A lot of folks in industry were very concerned with it because it asks for a broad expansion of powers that already exist. So that happened on April 9th. We had that hearing. At that hearing, a lot of members used their opportunity to ask questions to really cement their own policy positions on crypto and digital assets. Most notably, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who I think it's no surprise to anyone listening to this, we've talked about her at length, is not a friend of the industry. She is not an ally. She does not believe the industry, in my own opinion, should exist. She used her time at the hearing to really coerce, I thought, the Deputy Treasury Secretary into agreeing with her talking points. She had a very set agenda that, hey, I believe that digital assets is just illicit activity, and I'm going to keep asking the question until you just agree with me, Deputy Treasury Secretary. And so I'm then going to use those talking points and you agreeing with me to blast all over the place. And so we saw that, but we also saw members on the other side of the aisle, as well as some Democrats, use it to ask legitimate questions, trying to find a solution. I think, coming from the industry's perspective, as someone who engages with members of Congress and someone who engages with leading business partners in this space, everyone wants to tackle illicit finance. Nobody wants illicit activity in this space.
Right.
Having illicit activity in this space is bad for everyone. No one wants to see their money be stolen. No one wants to see their money in the hands of terrorists. And so if there is illicit activity ongoing, which I think we're all at the point to say, yes, it's out there, just like it is out there in the traditional financial sector, How can we combat it and address it? And so a lot of folks in the Senate, as part of the committee, used the hearing to say, hey, I've got ideas on some potential solutions that don't stifle innovation. Are these amenable to you, Deputy Treasury Secretary? Can we put forward these ideas that hopefully can address the problem? We saw that with Senator Tillis and Haggerty, who introduced their Enforced Act. We even heard Senator Sherrod Brown say, hey, I want to work with you on finding solutions in this space. And I recognize that this industry is here to stay. So I took away from that hearing as some positives, like, hey, there's a lot of people trying to find a solution and recognize this industry is here. Let's make sure it can be here and consumers can interact with this industry safely.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. There was at least the counter offensive, if you want to call it that, of people who are just neutral actors or pro crypto, trying to bring balance to that whole hearing. But it's funny. I've seen the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury. I don't know if it was at your event, but he has attended some events and
Yeah.
seems to be open-minded to working with the industry. Do you get that same sense?
I get that sense. And I get that really from most folks in the administration, especially Treasury, that there has been a shift. I think that it may correspond with the ETFs and it may correspond with the market prices going up, but there was real resistance over most of 2023 from the administration to acknowledge that crypto was here to stay, that this was a legitimate asset class. I think the ETFs really helped that. And with some traditional players getting more involved in the space, like a BlackRock, like a Fidelity, it helped change the perception from folk in the administration says we can't just resist, and say this is a fad and we're going to ban this. This is here to stay. A ton of consumers and constituents within the United States are interacting in this space. How can we address it appropriately where it is a safe asset class? And so I have seen that shift from the Deputy Treasury Secretary who says, I recognize this is here. I want to work with industry. I want to work with members of Congress to find right fit solutions. Now, some of those solutions that he's proposing are still overly burdensome and would stifle innovation. But I'm glad to see that perspective shift that, hey, this isn't a fad. We should do something here. When there's still members of Congress like Elizabeth Warren, Brad Sherman, we all know the names, who are still saying, this is a fad, get this out of the US. Why don't we just send all the activity offshore because it shouldn't exist here? The administration has really changed their tone.
Cody, sometimes I wonder, does Elizabeth Warren and Brad Sherman really believe these things, or are they being lobbied to, or is this just their way to raise campaign donations and get financial backings? And I know that's a hard question because we don't know what's going on in their mind, but they can't be that crazy and think that this thing is a fad.
I think it's giving a lot of them a lot of credit to say that, but no, what I will say is that when it comes to, I think some of the people who share that perspective, that this is a fad and we don't need to do anything. I think there's probably a lot of ulterior motives at play. But what I would say is that I truly believe, at least when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, and I think some Brad Sherman and some of the disciples are under the same perspective, is that they believe that government is the great equalizer and that everything that touches the financial space should have government control over it. And that if government is the great equalizer and government is going to make everybody whole, this technology that was born outside of government control scares the heck out of them. They don't want that. They don't want Americans to have exposure to that because they can't regulate it or control it as much as they would like to. And so we've heard Elizabeth Warren, we've heard Brad Sherman, we've heard even Sherrod Brown say they would like to usher in a CBDC, a central bank digital currency. Yeah. And they view Bitcoin and all of the other digital assets that exist today as direct competitors to that. And if their ethos that they've grown up with is government is that great equalizer, we should have more government control over the financial regulatory space, then they don't like this. And that's why I think they want to ban it. And that's what I think is driving a lot of this. Now, I'm sure to your point and your question, is it political donations? Is it that it, gets a lot of clicks online when Elizabeth Warren says she's leading the anti-crypto army? I'm sure all of that other noise is playing a huge part in the rhetoric, and why she wants the sound bites when she has a hearing like this. But I do really believe that there's a political ethos and difference at play here, that this is something that is against their belief that government control is the best thing for the people. And so that's why I think a lot of us love the beauty of digital assets and decentralization and blockchain technology, because it is outside the hands of government. And that's why we think it's safer, and we think it's more efficient and cheaper, and it is the future. But that's just a different perspective.
Now, fast forward to this week, you had Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Cynthia Lummis put together a stablecoin regulation bill. Tell us about that and the details around it.
Yeah, the Lummis Gillibrand Payment Stablecoin Act that came out this week. This is a behemoth of a bill. I believe it's 179 pages. So if you've read the entire thing, as I'm still trying to get through, kudos to you, just a few days after introduction. This was a long time coming. Lummis and Gillibrand have worked on stablecoin legislation for several years now. They have a stablecoin component in their Lummis Gillibrand Responsible Financial Innovation Act, their larger market structure bill, their more comprehensive regulatory bill of the digital asset space. And we've heard rumblings about this as we've seen negotiations go on behind the scenes between some of the House players who have their Clarity for Payment Stablecoin Act with some of the Senate players in trying to find a pathway for stablecoin legislation. Now, the one thing I do want to stress is that this Lummis Gillibrand bill is distinct from that House effort. This is something that they truly worked on themselves. There is some discrepancies between this bill and the House bill. Lummis Gillibrand have said they used the House bill as a starting place, and they've used some of the language they had already put forward as a starting place. But it is different. The way they regulate state issuers, non-bank issuers, versus the House effort is different. They both try to preserve the dual banking system, but the House version is different, as I mentioned. They added about 100 pages in this effort in the Senate bill on what happens if a stablecoin issuer fails. I think this is directly in response to some of the bank failures back in March of 2023 when some of the stablecoin issuers lost their peg. And so that's about 100 pages of the bill, that FDIC receivership or conservatorship section. So it is a distinct effort, but I think it signals that there is a real motivation to get stablecoin legislation moving forward now that we have a House product and a Senate product. Now all we need to do is get them together and get something enacted.
So, Cody, you mentioned the distinction between this bill versus what's in the House. Do you see this as just, hey, we're going to plant a flag in the Senate to bring attention, or is this a competing bill where because I know, look, everybody has their political agenda and they want to get the eyeballs and the mentions and so forth. Is this a competing bill, or is it just, hey, we're going to plant the flag here in the Senate to get the attention?
I think it's more the former. I think it's more the attention. I don't think they are trying to compete with the House. I think this is, hey, we're at a time right now, we're at an inflection point where we need a regulatory framework for stable coins. This House bill has been out there for several months. It had its markup back in July, so almost a year ago now. We need to bring more noise to the space, and we need to motivate actors to move on a stablecoin bill. So we're going to introduce our bill. We think it's the right time. Hopefully this creates attention, and hopefully we can make sure our two bills fit together in a final product. But I don't think they were looking to compete and be like, hey, you guys aren't doing it the right way in the House. Let's put up forward our effort, and this is what should, eventually become law. I really think it was, let's plant a flag, stablecoin, a regulatory framework. We all agree this isn't a partisan issue. We need to move forward, and we're going to say, let's do that now.
Rookie question for you. So how does that work if you have
Yeah.
one in the Senate? I know bills usually have to go to the House, Congress, then to the Senate,
Yeah.
then to the president for signing to law. So how does this work? Do they have a meeting where they combine, take the best of each and put it together, and then it's passed through the House, and then it goes through the Senate?
It's exactly as simple as that.
Oh,
It is,
okay.
they'll do a conference. They'll hopefully say, hey, we've passed our House version, we've passed our Senate version. We want to make sure that the bill lines up. And so we have one product. So we're going to conference the two versions to create a final product. If we can agree on that, we'll vote on it, we'll support it, and then it'll go to the president. So it's exactly that small meeting. Hey, if you guys do your job and we do our job, let's see if there's any technical differences here. Let's see if we can match them up and make it one final product, and then let's move that forward.
Do you think that we see it this year, given that there's such an urgency around stablecoins because of the US dollar, right? And all the implications that has, digital dollar, world reserve currency, not having any type of epic failures where you need these type of bailouts or whatever it may be. Do you think that makes it through this year?
I hate to be the pessimist. I don't think it makes it through this year. And I have had over the last few weeks almost every single person tell me I'm wrong, which if I'm wrong, I will be so happy and thankful to be wrong because I want to see this move forward. And so my pessimism shouldn't be illustrated like I want to tank this. I don't support these efforts. Um, I just think, and I look at the products that are out there now, and I look at the differences that have existed between the administration and Republicans on whether there should be a state pathway for non-banks, whether non-banks should even be able to issue stable coins. And I look at some of those substantive policy disagreements, and I'm not sure how we find a solution in the very, very small window on the legislative calendar where we can move bills. I think also putting into perspective all of the other things that are happening politically, the fact that we are fully in the throes of an election year, the fact that there is a lot of activity happening overseas that we're addressing, there are a lot of other competing issues. I'm not sure we find the time, one, to prioritize this, even though there are motivating factors. I know that we've had Patrick McHenry, we've had Lummis and Gillibrand, we've had Chuck Schumer even come out now, we've had Maxine Waters all say, hey, we're optimistic we can move something forward. We think there are vehicles out there like possibly an FAA reauthorization, or maybe we can trade passage of a stablecoin bill for some other priority bills that we have, like cannabis banking. I've heard all of it and I've seen all of it. Until it happens, I think I'll be pessimistic because there's just not that window that I see right now on the legislative calendar to move this. And I think those substantive issues take a long time to really figure out, especially who is going to be the primary regulator of stablecoin issuers. Should it be the Fed? Should it be the states? Are non-banks going to be able to issue them? Those are tough questions, and we've been working on them for 6 months, and we haven't gotten any closer to resolution. If they somehow are able to find a resolution in the next few weeks, I'll stress I will be the happiest person, but I am still pessimistic. And I think we're looking towards 2025 to move this.
I think your instincts are right. Just there's so many things going on right now in the world. The Fed and they're fighting inflation and rates. It's not like you said, it's not going to be any type of top priority. But maybe 2025, once the election is gone and done with, right, and all that noise and all the fighting and all that stuff, maybe 2025 is the year.
Yeah, that's what I hope. And it's what I hope for really all of these various crypto bills. You know, these things take time. And I think when I say that to people, they're like, what are we talking, like a few weeks, a few months? And I'm like, no, we're talking a few years, like several Congresses for some of these comprehensive bills when you're trying to regulate a nascent industry. And first you have to educate all members of Congress because they all have to vote on what we're actually trying to regulate. It takes a lot of time and effort. And so I know everyone is very anxious, especially with other jurisdictions moving forward with their own regulatory frameworks. The United States will get there. It's not if, it's when. We will regulate this space. We will eventually draw jurisdictional lines between the SEC, CFTC. We will understand Treasury's role. There will eventually be a stablecoin framework. It takes a long time to try to wrestle with the issues that are new. This isn't, adding we don't want to just add crypto into the 1930 securities laws or the 1970s commodities laws or the 1970 Bank Secrecy Act. There's going to be things that just don't fit perfectly with existing regulation. That's what's taking so long. So I think this is, for most of these legislative efforts, a 2025, 2026, and we are doing a really great job in getting us and setting us up for success in the near future.
Now, Patrick McHenry and the folks in the House have been working on quite a few things. Obviously, they have two bills, and Patrick McHenry, he's been talking about he wants to get this done.
Yeah.
Any updates there? Are there any upcoming hearings? Are they bringing in Gensler at any point that we can see any action?
They will bring in Gensler for an oversight hearing. This is the House Financial Services Committee. They're likely targeting sometime this spring or maybe early summer before the August recess. So there will be an opportunity to see Gensler have to answer questions on all of his regulatory activity as it relates to digital assets, enforcement actions. In terms of the other legislative efforts, the big one in addition to stablecoins is the market structure bill, drawing those jurisdictional lines between the two market regulators, the SEC and the CFTC. This bill was voted out of House Financial Services Committee and House Agriculture Committee, as I mentioned, back in July. So it's been a while. In the time between July and now, the drafters of that bill between the two committees have been meeting with various offices and trying to build support. They really want to build a bipartisan coalition. This bill will eventually find time on the House floor, and it will be considered. Whether that's sometime early this spring, I'm leaning towards June, July, but likely before August recess. I do think it will get a vote on the House floor. Now, the question always is, great, is that going to become law? Like, we're going to see a vote. We're going to see a vote on this. We're going to see this bill move. Likely not, because the Senate has no interest in taking this up. So that might be the end of the road there, but I think it's massive progress. And if you're Patrick McHenry, you should be proud to say, hey, I drew the first truly regulatory bill for the industry. I tried to delineate between what the SEC's power is, what the CFTC's power is, and I was able to move that through the House. I can't control what happens in the Senate. The Senate is a logjam. The Senate is chaos. It is a mess. I think House staffers who have been working on these bills would probably agree with me and are nodding along. It is a total mess in the upper chamber. But I do think that bill is going to move forward sometime late this spring, probably early summer.
Yeah, like you said, it would be an incredible win just to get it out of the House.
Yeah.
And then, we'll keep chipping away at it and try to get some form or a merged form with Senator Lummis and Gillibrand's version to the Senate. Now, regarding Gensler, we've heard rumors, and this hasn't been confirmed by the SEC, but that they are investigating the Ethereum Foundation. And, I recently spoke to someone from Consensus, and it seems to be some sort of plot by the SEC to categorize Ethereum as a security. I don't know if it's a smokescreen to delay the Ethereum spot ETF. What are you hearing about that?
It's raised attention and eyebrows on Capitol Hill. There have been a ton of members who have been asking questions about this, especially with Prometheum saying that they were going to list Ethereum as a digital asset security. There are members who are very angry with this because the CFTC has come out and said this is a commodity. I don't know what's going to happen, and I wish I had insight into what was going to happen. I can't say I would be shocked if the SEC came out and said that ETH was a security, because that has been aligned with everything they've done to date and trying to regulate the entire industry besides Bitcoin, just falsely claiming that they have the authority to say all of these things are securities. I think that alarm bells started to ring when Ethereum moved over to a proof of stake model. And that said to the SEC, okay, this looks more like a security and an investment contract with staking and validating than it did before when it was under a proof of work consensus mechanism. I think we all have very strong opinions about that, and that we would say that ETH definitely is not a security and it should be a commodity. But I would probably agree that the SEC is definitely looking into this. It's no surprise to me, and it won't be a surprise to me if some kind of enforcement action against the Ethereum Foundation comes in the future. I hope not, but just know that if that does happen, there's a host of members on Capitol Hill who are ready to sound the alarm bells, who are ready to bring him up and call attention to this. I'm sure we'll see more noise and more letters come out from those members very quickly.
I'm hoping it doesn't get to that. I'm hoping it's some sneaky move to delay the spot ETF, but I feel like the industry is going to be in such a turmoil if they were to file something against Ethereum, because there are many different projects that follow that model of being proof of stake, but also having a foundation and these things. And there's so many projects built on Ethereum. I think it would be just
It
so.
would be a nightmare, but unfortunately, what I've learned about the SEC in this role is that they seem to embrace chaos. I think we would all disagree that that doesn't align necessarily with their mission to protect investors, but I don't think they've been acting with that mission or with that North Star recently at all anyway. So it wouldn't surprise me, unfortunately, but it would be a nightmare. It would be a complete nightmare. I couldn't agree more.
Um, Real quick question on SOB 121 or
Yeah.
121. I know that was going to be up for vote for repeal. Is there any updates on that?
Yeah, so it passed through House Financial Services Committee on February 29th. We'll likely see that go to the floor in the near future, and hopefully we can get a bipartisan vote to nullify that in the House. It has been introduced in the Senate by Senator Cynthia Lummis. That will go through Senate Banking Committee in a markup, hopefully shortly after it passes the House. We're hearing sometime in May. Um, Hopefully we can get the votes where it passes out of both houses. The nice thing about SAB 121 repeal under the Congressional Review Act is that it only requires 51 votes to move in the Senate. So it just needs a simple majority, not 60 votes like other pieces of legislation. So we really just need one or two Democrats to support the Republicans in nullifying this rule. I think that will happen. And so hopefully we have until September to move that under the Congressional Review Act timeline. Hopefully in the next few months, we see that repeal go through both houses. It would then have to be signed by the president, which was what I think people are saying, oh, that might not work. However, the president doesn't often veto things, and not sure that he would want to use political capital to veto what I think is truly a process issue and a consumer protection issue. You can leave crypto completely out of this. The Government Accountability Office and what led to this vote in Congress said, hey, this is a rule. The SEC went against all guidelines under the Administrative Procedure Act. They did not follow the law. They did not follow the rules. And this also hurts consumers.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is a no-brainer and we can see this nullified soon. And we're working behind the scenes tirelessly to make sure that as many folks as possible in the House and Senate recognize this is an issue that is pretty catastrophic, and we're hoping to build broad bipartisan support on this.
All right, final item here, Cody. You guys, the Chamber of Digital Commerce is hosting the DC Blockchain Summit May 15th and 16th. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Tell us about this and what's going to be happening.
Yeah, come hang out with Tony and I. This is going to be awesome. This is the 7th DC Blockchain Summit that we are hosting. It is a full, and I'm talking jam-packed day. You can see on our agenda on our website of policy conversations around digital assets and blockchain technology. We have over 10 members of Congress who will be there. We have industry leaders. We have members of the administration from the IRS, Treasury, FinCEN, CFTC, SEC, you name it. Anyone who's involved in government and is involved in policy in the digital asset space will be there, and you should be there too if you're interested in this space. It is, as you mentioned, May 15th and 16th. It's in DC. 16th is our education day. And so if you're interested in having the conversations that I do on a daily basis with members of Congress and their staff, you feel passionate about educating on the digital asset and blockchain space, we have an opportunity for you where you can sign up for this day, and we will set up meetings for you with congressional stakeholders, and you can go around and educating them yourself. So I truly hope everyone can come to DC. It is our venue. The Capitol Turnaround is right near the House of Representatives. We're right near Capitol Hill. So it'll be a really exciting day, and we're looking forward to it.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm excited for it, especially the blockchain education day. Because you, like you said, we get to kind of go do what you've been doing.
It's fun. It's fun.
Awesome. Cody, always great stuff, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Tony. And congrats on your book. Have to plug that in. Congrats on your book. Thanks so much for having me, Tony.